Welcome. Today I will be paraphrasing, summarizing, and sharing on the November 17th Al-Anon readings, Encouraged to Change, and a little time for myself. And November 17th is my brother's birthday, so I'm wishing him a very happy birthday today and a happy, healthy, prosperous year ahead. We'll begin with the Serenity Prayer and 3 mindful breaths. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I will take a moment and look this over. The question of the day is, how do I make choices in a crisis? And the passage is about a parent in a custody situation whose son was moving out of state. And the parent panicked, but at the same time stepped back and realized that they didn't have to do anything at that moment or in that day. And eventually, they didn't have to force a solution at all. The solution came about completely naturally on its own, and it all worked out. So today's reminder says we don't have to react, we always have a choice. And the quote is from Courage to Change. When we take the time to make a thoughtful choice, it's much easier to accept the consequences. So back to the question, how do I make choices in a crisis? Just thinking about it makes my heart race a little bit. But what I've done in the past that has been really helpful is that I have leaned on people that I trust. So, for example, once, it was a long, long time ago, but my son wasn't living with me, but he was kind of homeless at the time. He didn't have a place to live. He was kind of like couch surfing and sleeping outside, and it was a long time ago, and he's not doing that anymore, but he caught pneumonia, and he called me and said that he couldn't stop throwing up. And I called my sponsor right away. Actually, no, I didn't. Oh my goodness, I didn't have a sponsor at that time. This was before I had a sponsor. I called someone it was my very first meeting, my first home meeting, I mean. And I called the person that I felt comfortable speaking with. And he gave me excellent advice, which is he said, well, what do you want to do? What are your boundaries? Fine. So it's all coming back to me now. I actually called him from the emergency room of the hospital. My son was waiting to be seen or had been seen, and they said he couldn't go. I told him, we talked about the fact that he did not have shelter. And the emergency room doctor said, he's got to have shelter or he's not going to get better. So that's when I excused myself and went outside and called this person from the meeting, the contact list. So important, the contact list from your home meeting, my home meeting. So important. And that person answered the phone and gave me some guidelines, and I brought my son home and he got better. And the understanding was after he got better, he would leave again. And I came home one day and he had left. And thank goodness, gosh, just thinking about it is like, oh, my heart. But it all worked out the way it was supposed to work out. Now, fast forward to things that are not as emotional for me as that. I can talk to my partner, talk to my sponsor. I do have a sponsor now. And my sponsor has helped me many times in similar situations. I can journal about it. I can make a list. I think the most important thing to do is not feel like I have to rush to make a decision. And that can be hard. That can be very hard, especially depending on the specific circumstances. Sometimes it feels like a decision needs to be made, but does it really need to be made at that moment? So, how do you make choices in a crisis? The whole idea makes me nervous, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. All right, moving on. I'm going to take a look. Wow. This is kind of about dealing with a crisis situation as well. Uh, well, it talks about keep coming back is the slogan. And it says when we first came to Al-Anon, we wanted to have answers right away, or we wanted to take action right away. That's what we were talking about with the reading from A Little Time for Myself. In a crisis, we don't have to take action right away, most of the time. But if we sit still, we listen, we can begin to heal, is what this is saying. And we keep coming back. And whenever we are faced with a challenge, it says in our closing, in our meeting closing, there is no situation too difficult to be bettered and no unhappiness too great to be lessened. Ah, what an amazing promise. What an amazing feeling every time I hear that. There is no situation too difficult to be bettered and no unhappiness too great to be lessened. Today's reminder, when we're feeling down, we can return to the basics of our program. Go to a meeting, call our sponsor, go back to the first step. We just need to keep coming back to our program, to our meeting, to our fellowship. And the quote is from One Day at a Time in Al-Anon, and it just says, Al-Anon helps us if we want to be at peace with our environment and our relationships with people. And it's so funny because it did help me survive the crisis of substance abuse when it was in my life, but now it helps me in my relationships and the way I conduct myself every day. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's so surprising how much I need that guidance. And I'm just grateful to have it. Very grateful to have it. So I will most definitely keep coming back. We'll close out with the serenity prayer and 3 mindful breaths. Here we go. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Sending you love. Take care.